Welcome. It's readable? Yes? Okay, thanks. Well, welcome for being here. This session, I'll be talking about how to improve your development workflow using Composer in this case. You know, how many of you are aware of Composer? What Composer is? Are you currently using Composer? Awesome. Well, starting to start. So I'm Olivas. I'm a Drupal 8 solutions engineer. I work for FFW. You can find me on Twitter and Drupal.org and other like social networks as jmolivas. Or you can also follow Drupal Console or Drupal Podcast Twitter accounts that I kind of keep using and tweeting. I am a co-maintainer of Drupal Console project. It's a new CLI for Drupal 8. And during this talk, I'll be mentioning a few tools or projects that can help you improve your workflow with Drupal 8. In this case, I'll be talking about Composer, talking about Git and Drupal Console, and a project called Drupal Composer. How many of you are aware of this? Already playing with? Awesome, it's great. And come on, is that? Well, how do you get Drupal? How do you used to get Drupal prior to or before 8.1? So before that, when we were 8.0, got released. We used to get Drupal by downloading the distribution file, like this star.gz or zip file from Drupal.org, but you can probably use drush, DL command for get Drupal, or if you are using Drupal console, you might be using Drupal site new, and then, you know, argument for the directory, or then the -- latest to get the version, or you can specify the version, something like 8.0. So before Drupal 8.1, you should usually used to get Drupal like this. Then, but what's not good about this? I don't want to say it's wrong, but what's happening with this kind of approach? You can still download Drupal like that, get 8.1, like downloading the distributable file from DO. But what's wrong with this approach? So we have a git ignore file, I will see in a few. And another thing is we have the whole third-party dependencies prepackaged in that file. So it means any dependencies from the Drupal core are already in this directory called vendor. Thankfully, that is not happening starting from 8.1. But that is what happens, right? You get the package. And what this package contains, besides what I told you, the vendor directory contains all of the dependencies. So you can see something like this if you do a tree command within the vendor directory. You see all of the dependencies, like third-party dependencies. Some Symfony dependencies, some other area that I used to build Drupal. And this is the content of the git ignore file. As you can see, shamefully, the core and the vendor directory are not ignored in this file. So it means those files will be committed on your source control system. So it means your repo will contain this directory with all of the dependencies, which is kind of sad because then it means you are handling all those files in your repo. And we'll see how can we save time in doing it in a different way. This is where Composer came to the game. And what is Composer? Composer is a dependency manager for PHP. Composer helps you to manage dependencies of your project. You can use as well Composer to manage dependencies in a global system globally. But I kind of do not recommend you to do that because you can probably have some conflicts between different packages or projects containing different versions of the same library. So I rather recommend you to handle or manage all of your dependencies using Composer at a project level, right? If you want to see instruction to get Composer or download Composer, just go to getcomposer.org, and basically it's a matter of downloading a FAR file. So you execute a curl command, you get a FAR file in your system. From there you can use it like something like PHP, composer.far, or move to somewhere like user, local bean, blah, 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 composer. But what composer do when you execute composer? So once you have composer and you have a project, basically you run a few commands, either composer install or composer update, and what happens is composer contains a file. Your project should contain a file, a composer.json file. That file contains all of the definitions of the dependencies of your project. Then composer read this file and look for those packages in a place called packages. In this case, there's a project called packages, which is a big, huge repository of packages. Then from there, it's find the definition of the package you have in your system and look for the repo of that project in GitHub or Bitbucket or any place that you have that project, right? Once you get this project and all of the definitions you have in your composer.json, start to looking for the dependencies of those packages. So basically, Composer takes care of resolving the dependencies of your project plus the dependencies of your project, right? If your project has few other dependencies, it will resolve those as well. And we will take care of fixing, any conflicts between different, libraries in the different projects. And once all that discovery part is done, you just kind of know what to need to download in your system. Is just download all those files into the vendor directory. Now you will have a vendor directory in your project. And finally, it creates a composer.lock file. So this file, it contains the exact version that you just download by running composer update, right? So again, you have a composer.json file with a definition. Composer resolve all those dependencies, the dependencies of your dependencies, download it for you into the vendor directory, and create this composer.lock file with containing the exact version you just downloaded. Please make sure you always commit your composer.lock file. Please do that. Okay. How do you start a new project? Okay, let's forget about downloading the tar file or the zip or running trashcl or Drupal console site new command. Please don't do that. Please do something like this. We can use Composer to get a new project. In this case, we can execute the create project command. So it's something like composer, create project, and then the project name. In this case, we will try first to use Drupal. The Drupal project is Drupal. And I'm passing some options here, like prefer this and no interaction. Because I don't want to have any interaction in the output on the CLI, and I want to get the distribution version of those packages. I don't want to clone them. I just want to have the distribution version of each package that is set on my composer.json file. This create project command is the equivalent of doing something like git clone Drupal project, which is basically going something like either GitHub and clone it from there or from the repo on Drupal.org and executing the composer install. So it's like cloning the project, getting the definition of the dependencies of Drupal, and then executing composer install to get all those dependencies in your system, right? And next step, we will like creating a Git repo for my project, something like git init, and then copy the examples that gitignore file provided by the project. Something like example gitignore, copy it to .gitignore. And now we have a project. We have a repo, definition, and what's within this gitignore file. As you can see, this file is ignoring the vendor directory. It means we are no longer committing the dependencies into the repository. It means when someone clones your project, that project doesn't have the dependencies. You must run a composer command to download all those dependencies. It also ignores some other files, like every file within sites. So if you have any like default or any multi-site here, any file within that directory will be ignored. Same as like private files and private files, right? So private files. Files private, and the settings.php and services.yaml, because those files could contain information you don't want to put in your repo and just and upstream to GitHub or any other place. How do you add a new dependency? You have Drupal now, but you don't have dependencies. Let's add a new dependency. In this particular case, we will add a Drupal console dependency. For this case, we will execute the require command. So it's composer, require, and the dependency name. In this case, it's Drupal/console. The first value is the vendor name, which is Drupal, and then the other value is the project name, right? Which is console. And we can pass a version if you want to force to a specific version to be downloaded. So in this case, I'm doing something like 1.0. Well, 1.0, and then since I'm prepending a tilde, it means anything from 1.0 to 1.9 or something like prior to 2.0. And again, I'm passing some options like prefer this. Again, getting the distribution version of those packages. Optimize autoloader to create the autoloader file and all this array of mapping where all these like classes and all the autoloader classes. And the stored packages, because I kind of like to have my composer in order, right? It's kind of might be just me, but I was really happy when I saw this option because I used to do like manually, open the file and start like rearranging. And every single time that I need a package, go back again and rearrange it again. But I might be just see the doctor, but it's here now, so I've used it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What if you didn't add that 1.0 version to the Drupal console? Would it get the latest dev version?
Yeah, Composer will try to get the latest version, but not today. Well, you can set get the latest version, but depending on the definition of your Composer file, you can probably specify having like search for dev or for stable versions. So it just depends. But it tries to get the latest version based on your definition, and you can force that by passing like dev or stable. And then we have the project. What you will do is install Drupal. You can just cite install command. You pass in these options if you want to. Just get your site functional. Now that you have your site, you have your project, you have your working site, let's start using, Git. Just add all your changes. Git add, like -p, because you want to see what are you committing. For adding to the commit, then just commit your message, and then you push your branch, right? Then from there, you can just create a pull request. Someone will merge your changes. So you have your project. What if another developer, part of your team, wants to get your project? The other developers, they don't need to create project. What they will do is git clone the project that you just push, right? Remember, we run git init to create a new project. Then we commit our changes and just send it, create a pull request, right? So we have a new project. Then any developer in your team will run git clone and then will pass the URL of your project. You'll get a copy of your project. And in order to get the dependencies of this project, he must run composer install. In this case, running composer install, instead of resolving all of the dependencies of your project in your composer.json file, it will read your composer.lock file. That's what I ask you and always recommend you to commit that file, the composer.lock file. So again, composer install, instead of resolving all of the dependencies, it will read the composer.lock file, and based on the definition, based on the versions set on that file, it will start downloading all of your packages. And again, just prefer this in this case, and optimize autoloader. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes?
Can you just set those preferences like prefer disk and optimize autoloader like in composer.json, so you don't have to add those every single time?
Yeah, you can. There's a way to configure the source. It's called source, the key on Composer. Well, then you might want to remember the file, the site's file was ignored in your You might want to commit your configuration, right? Someone can just get that configuration and import it in your. So everyone can share the same configuration, right? So you can do something like this. Just change the directory at the settings.php file. Just put something like config, and then the huge cache that was automatically generated for you in that directory. And okay, we have a project. What if I want to add a new module? I want to add, let's say, big pipe. What I need to do is do something like, in this case, we will use the module download command. So we will kind of use the same approach that we were doing. So the only thing we changed in this part of the process for now, it's getting the project through Composer. But we are still using the download method, which is basically going to Drupal.org and getting the project for myself. So let's try run something like module download, big file, then it gets downloaded to my system. And then I can go like Drupal module install, module name, in this case big pipe, and Drupal config export, right? Because I want to make sure that all the configuration will export it. And again, add it using Git for add, commit, push my changes, then merge my pull request, and the rest of the team, what can do? Just fetch upstream, changes, merge, the upstream. And from there, config import and maybe running cache rebuild or the CR command, because that's probably one of your best friends in Drupal 8.
Excuse me, where does that Drupal command come from?
Well, because I'm using Drupal console for running all these examples.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to make sure I understand. When you're using you're downloading the module with that Drupal command, is it updating your composer file?
No, I'm
not.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm about to be there. I'm at one slide. Okay.
Sorry. I got too excited.
Yeah, I mean, I can see you. You're like, so we're using Composer to get Drupal, we're getting the modules all the way. Where? Still?
Just trying to set you up there. Help you.
We have this prepared already. So
I have a question actually.
Sure.
Have you noticed any differences between the config the export and import with Drush versus Drupal console?
Yes.
Because I found that it seems to miss things with Drupal console.
It's missing a few keys and it's missing the multi-level configuration key value. Yeah, we're working on that thing. But there's no issue, so someone should add an issue to the project. Well, we have an issue already. So what do we have so far at this point? So we use Composer to manage the site. Well, not totally. We have Composer to manage Drupal, but it's good, good enough. We finally get the vendor directory ignored, which is like, it's a big win. And we're using it for code and configuration. But sadly, our modules are still committed. Because, as you know, modules are within this module directory of the root of my project, and I am not ignoring that directory. So modules are still committed in my project. And finally, the config directory is not outside of the project root. So it means that the web root, and someone can just get there and find out your hash, and probably those files are accessible to the web server. So it means we are halfway there. We're kinda getting there, but it's better than nothing. So this is where Drupal Composer came into the game. Drupal Composer is a template. It's a Composer template for Drupal. This project contains the definition of allow me to download Drupal console, Drush, and some other libraries that are required for working with Drupal. So you can find this as GitHub, Drupal-composer/Drupal project, or you just search Drupal Composer in Google and you will find out. How do I start a new project using Drupal Composer? So I will do something like Composer, create project, the same command. Remember this command? Is the one with git clone and git install? We can do something like this, and then instead of running this and using the Drupal package, we will use that Drupal Composer Drupal project package. And I'm setting the 8.x.dev version. I'm setting the directory. Again, I'm setting the preferred this. No interaction, because I don't want to see nothing happening in this CLI. And finally, I run git init to create this project. What is this? What this project contains? This structure maybe looks a little different than the default Drupal structure that you get from the file when you get something like Drupal or site new running in Drupal console. So this project, the root of the project, as you can see, it's like doesn't have the index. It's kind of weird. Where's my index file? Because it has a web directory. The web directory is where all of the Drupal files are. Within the web directory, you have the autoload, the core directory, which contains all of the code, Drupal core code, the index.php file, and this within the web is, as well the modules, profiles and themes directories. So all of my Drupal files will be here at web. But the composer.json file is at the root of the project. I have the composer.json and composer.lock, and I have a vendor directory. I have the composer.lock and the vendor directory because I already run create project. Remember what it's done? It found it for me and it run install. Let's take a look at the get ignore file. In this case, we can see we are ignoring the vendor directory. So it means any third-party dependency will be ignored. We won't be committed in the repo. We are ignoring the web core. It means any core files will also as well ignore. And we are ignoring what? Modules, themes, and profiles. Because we will use Composer to manage all those projects, right? And we as well ignoring like sites, files, and should be ignoring private as well. Let's run again Drupal, site install. I got my site installed in my local machine. And well, let's commit all these changes for share my project with the rest of the team. Create my changes, git add, git commit, git push. Create my pull request, send it, merge. How the rest of the team can get a copy of my project. Again, git clone and composer install. Get composer install. So now they have the project. Remember what the change we did with the settings file? In this particular case, let's change again the path. But let's take this path outside of the web directory. Let's put at the root of the project to avoid having the configuration files within the web root. So make these files not available to the web, browser. The web server. Now, how are we going to manage the downloading modules? For this particular kind of flow, we will use composer require. So in this case, it's like composer require, then the module, which is Drupal, which is the vendor name, and BigPipe. Right? I am no longer using RushDL. I am no longer using module download from Drupal console. I am using Composer to do this because Composer is a tool for that purpose. And actually, I can tell you, with Drupal console, we are just using the possibility of remove the download commands, either for modules and themes, because it's the less code we have in the project, the less code we have to maintain is better for us. And I can tell you, writing the logic for resolving dependencies of modules and these dependencies of their dependencies, it was totally a nightmare. And I really want to get rid of those commands. So we use Composer, require, then the module, in this case the package name, which is Drupal BigPipe. And from there we can install using the Drupal module install and exporting configuration, again, config export. Again, git add, git commit, push, merge my changes, and let the rest of the things sync what you just did. They will fetch upstream, they will merge, the branch, and they will run config import and maybe run cache rebuild again because, sometimes, like most of the time, you need to rebuild your cache while working with Drupal 8. How do I update a module? I have a module, there's a new version that I need to run. I need to download Composer update. Okay? But in this case, I am running Composer update and passing the package name that I want to update. I just want to update this specific package. So Drupal BigPipe again. Once it gets downloaded, it's this command, this update command will get the package in my system, resolve any dependencies, will update the composer.json file, in the composer.lock file. So it will take, the benefit is, we'll automatically get the file and update either the composer and the composer.lock. So next time that I commit my changes, the composer.locks get updated, right? Again, I go git add, commit, push, someone merge my changes, and the rest of the team can get all those changes by fetch upstream, merge, and in this particular case, update, git fetch upstream, and update execute, right? Well, I need to run, sorry about that, it's missing, it's missing there. Yeah, it's missing. It's missing composer update, okay, right? Because composer install, because my composer log changes. Then run update execute to bring all the hook updates on my system, or update execute all the running for every single module. Okay, but how how is Composer aware of the Drupal module? How Composer knows where those modules are? And I just run Composer, requires something and you know, a package name. How Composer knows where those modules are? Well, there's different places, as I mentioned. There's a place called packages, which is where all of the packages are registered. In the case of Drupal, Drupal has their own packages, like repository site. Well, now we have two. And how composers know about it? Remember, we are using the Drupal Composer project. This project contains a composer.json file, right? But each module as well, each Drupal module should contain its own composer.json file. So each Drupal module that you write in Drupal 8 should contain its own like composer.json file. This is what we see in here. Within this file, we have, some configurations and metadata to set. The more we have the name, the description. But if you take a look at this at the screen, you will see something, a key called type. In this type, we're specifying this is a Drupal module, right? So the type of packages of repo of my project, in this case, is a Drupal module, right? So this is how Composer knows. Composer is aware of once Composer finds this package in packages, he knows it's a Drupal module. But all those packages again are stored not in the packages on the global packages project. We have this packages.drupal composer.org site, which contains all of the definitions of the Drupal modules. And we also have this packages.drupal.org. It's something new from a couple of months ago, the most. But it's still in alpha state, so I'm still would recommend you to keep with packages.drupal composer. What I saw is the platform, service, they switched to Drupal.org packages. Maybe it's time to switch. I'm not sure. If you go to the site, still tell you it's in alpha. It's up to you. But both sites contain the definition of the module packages. And that definition contains the definition of the project and the path where the repo is. Okay? So, again, we have a composer file in each module, and we have this is within the composer.json file of that I currently have in my local. Yes?
So does the theme need to create a composer.json file too, or does like Drupal.org's packaging system create one if there isn't one?
It must create a one.
Okay.
Or you can run Drupal console, generate command, generate theme, it will generate it for you. Okay, we have this. Just as a note, this definition of this composer is the one I have in my project, right? The one I get from getting the Drupal composer project. The previous one is the one in the module, just to avoid confusion. Within the same definition of the composer.json file that I get from the Drupal composer project, I have the extra section where I have the installer paths. In this installer paths section is where we define where the Drupal module, Drupal profile, or Drupal theme types of packages will be installed when running Composer install or Composer update, right? So in this case, it's pointing to web modules or web profiles or web themes. So it means once Composer run and find a Drupal module package type, it will put it in that. It will download it into that directory. So if you have a team, you need to have something like Drupal theme within your composer of your team project. And can I use a module outside of Drupal.org? Yes, you can. And you can do this by adding a new package in your composer.json file. So again, this is the same composer.json file we get in our local project. You can add this new package. You define it as, package. You give it a name, you give it a version, you give it a type. And there is a source, section where you set the URL of your repository. In this case, I'm pointing to GitHub, because I have this one in GitHub. I don't have this one at Drupal.org. And I specify it's the type Git, and I'm referencing to a specific tag or release, right? Or you can even reference to a specific commit hash if you want. It's not recommended, but sometimes you have to do that. But again, so you update the composer file in your project in order to register a package outside of either the packages of Drupal or the global packages system. And then you can run something like composer require in Drupal, Drupal gets embed, which is the name that I give to my package. So, and now composer will find out, will discover this, and this will be valid. So even when it's not registered in either packages from Drupal or the global packages, because it's registered in my composer file of my project. It means if someone else on the project, you will have this definition and this command will work. How can I apply patches? This kind of started looking like Rushmake, isn't it? Well, there's a plugin, composer plugin for that. There is a section within extras again, it's called patches. The only thing I need to do is set the package name, in this case again, Drupal big pipe, and set a description and then the URL to the patch. I can point this to something like drupal.org/project/la, and then the patch file, right? So I have this. You can even set this to a local file. This file could be a JSON file, and that JSON file could have the definition like this inside within that file. You can decide to go and set it at the same composer JSON or in another JSON file. It's up to you. You maybe want to have that into a different file, for just kind of avoid you having your composer too huge. There might be some benefits you'll find about separating that definition. Okay, and how can I automate some task here, right? So we have composer now, but now that every time that I run composer update in my system, might be some modules get updated, right? So I need to run config import or do some other task to kind of make this flow complete. And I can probably forget to run some of the tasks. What you can do, you can take advantage of the scripts section of your composer.json file. Sorry about that. We have, in this place, you can set scripts to execute when a specific event is happening in Composer. So you have different scripts, events you can hook into, but in this case, I'm showing the post-install command, the pre-update command, and the post-update command, right? So we have the post-install command. You can either execute a PHP callback, which means you can call a function within a class, but that function should be declared as a static, or you can execute any CLI command you have available in your system. So in the first case, in the post-install, I'm executing a shell file, right? So I'm executing a file which is like console, which is within the console directory, and it means I have this file within my project. The advantage to have this, again, in the repo, means I will share this with the rest of the team, and all of the team can take advantage of running those files. I will show you the content of the three files. The first one is the shell file. Look like this. This have little validation. So every time that I run composer install, it will look for the settings file. If the settings file is not there, Drupal is not installed, right? So it's kind of validating. If it's not if it is not installed already, it will run the Drupal chain command. So basically, again, I'm taking advantage of Drupal console. How many of you are aware of the chain command? So the chain command, you know what it is? So the chain command, it is a command from the Drupal console project that allows you to read a YAML file. And that YAML file can contain the definition of multiple commands. So, sounds familiar? Sounds kind of like Rush recipes. But basically, it allows me to pass the dash file option and specify the path of a YAML file. And I will show you the content, how this file looks like. So again, I'm validating Drupal is not installed by looking for a file and executing this command. And this is how the file looks like. I have this. This is the post-install YAML file. Again, it's within my repo. I'm sharing with the rest of the team. And within this YAML file, I have the commands, root, key, and within that, I have an array of commands. So basically, I am queuing the execution of different Drupal console commands. In this case, I'm running the site install command, and since I want to avoid passing, errors, avoid passing the database type, the host name, or the database password and port and user and what I can do with this is just preset some environment variable. So Drupal console chain command is smart enough to read environment variables. So you have all those sets in your system, it will read them, it will read from there. If it's not, it will throw you a message. Then let's fill the site with some data, some dummy data. So I'm executing the create users, create vocabularies, terms, and nodes command. So basically, this will run a content generation on my system. So I install my system and I have dummy data, so I can start working with. This is kind of called like seed or like data pictures.
Can you only chain commands that are part of Drupal console, or can you do other things too?
Until Alpha 2, which is the current version, yes, only Drupal console command. Once Beta 3 gets released, probably Sunday, you will be able to execute any CLI command. And let's see how about the pre-update. Remember that the previous, automation was from the post-install. So once the installation gets Drupal, Composer, complete the installation, it runs that for me. So the event that I'm showing you right now is a pre-update. So every time that I run Composer update, this will be run before that. So what I will do is, it will create for me a database dump. We'll dump the database. Since I am not passing any arguments, it will put right on the root of my site, right? It will create something like Drupal, timestamp that, SQL file for dumping the database. And in here, I'm showing you the exec command. So now you will be able to run execute any CLI command. And I'm running the Composer archive command, which is take care of creating an archive of my project, right? It will create a tar file from the content of my project. And this is the pre-update. So post-update, what I'm executing or what I'm automating at this point, it's running the config import command. So any changes on the configuration will be automatically imported in my site. And it's also running the update execute command. So it's running the update execute since I have no idea which module was updated, so I'm running the update. I'm passing the argument this will run the update execute for all of the modules. But in the end, it will look for the available hooks to be executed and executed for you. Okay. Then should I use Composer install or update? Okay. How Composer works is like this. You have your application, and then it tries to read the Composer log file. So when you run Composer update, again, read the Composer log file and grab that version without trying to resolve all the dependencies. And grab the version for the repo that's where those packages are registered, right? And difference, if you run Composer update, then it will try to get the latest version of that package. Well, the latest version that is compatible with your packages, right? And then update the Composer log file. So if you run Composer install, read the Composer log, get all those dependencies, and download into your system. If you run Composer update, it will update the dependencies. It will get the latest dependencies and update your Composer log file. So you should run, when starting a new project, Composer install, right? When you want to make sure you have the latest version on the project, all the latest updates for all the developers, again, Composer install. Because someone else might be running Composer update, and you just update the Composer log file for you, so you fetch your changes and run Composer install. And deploying a new release of your application, you will run Composer update as well. In this case, I highly recommend you to do the prefer this option and the optimize autoloader, right? And when will be the case for running Composer update? Just when trying to grab the latest version of a package. That's the only time you should run Composer update. Besides that, you should always run Composer install. And how do you deploy your project? So deploy your project will look something like this: composer install -- no progress. I don't want to see progress in the CLI. -- prefer this. And in this case, I highly recommend you to pass the -- no there to avoid downloading the packages defined on the as the development version of your project. You don't want to deploy PHP unit or vhat in your production server, right? So if you run composer install and pass the -- no there -dev option, you will avoid to downloading any dependency that is set as dependency for development. And finally, optimize autoloader. Okay, and so what we have, this is a little explanation of what install do. Download the same version defined on the composer.lock file. The no progress means it shows no progress on the CLI. The prefer this option, just download the distribution packages. Those when you do a release. I mean that release includes a tar file or tar GC file, so it gets that one. So it means do not require Git to get that dependency. It's not cloning the dependency you are downloading. So in this case, it means you don't require to have Git installed in your server. And it also takes care of caching. If there's any projects that are already cached in your system, it will read from your system instead of going to packages to downloading all those dependencies. And again, no dev avoids download development libraries and optimize autoloader. It generates the class map. This is a huge array, like key value array, from for the BSR0 and for autoloaders. And so what we have now? Yes, remember the previous example, the first example we saw. So in this case, you are fully using Composer to manage our site. We got the vendor directory ignored. We are using Git for code and configuration, but we also have the modules managed by Composer and are no longer committed into our project. And we are also accomplished having the config directory outside of the project web root. And finally, please always commit your composer.lock file. That's all I have. And just time for questions. Yes?
Can you update individual dependencies in your log file via composer update?
Yeah, if you run composer update and specify a package name, it will take care of getting that package in your system and update either both your composer.lock and composer.json file. Never do that manually.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Sometimes when working a project, maybe two developers try to add a new module, and then we run the composer update thing, and then update the log file, and probably with the latest version of their modules or libraries. So at some point, each developer, if they're working at the same time, they commit those changes, and when one push and the other try to do the same, then there are merge conflicts in the log file itself. Because the two try to update at the same time without talking to each other, how can I prevent that?
Well, prior to run the composer update for a specific module, you'll try to fetch your site, right? So you fetch changes. Then when you fetch changes, your composer log file it gets updated in your system, right? Then when you try to run composer update and then package name, Composer will tell you have a different the version of your log file in your composer you have in your system versus the composer log file you get from the project that someone else already update there's some difference on it. It will tell you, it will warning you about there are differences between those files. So that and then you can make sure you run that, and then the file will get updated. But it's prior to running a composer update, make sure you fetch changes, and composer will warn you about the issue of the outdated file between the composer JSON and composer log file.
So if I want to go, let's say from 8.1.3 to 8.1.4 with Drupal, then do I do like a composer update Drupal/Drupal so that it's just updating that? Like, my memory is when I've done composer update, sometimes it gets overzealous in updating some of the dependencies to things that haven't necessarily been tested with a specific version of Drupal, like one of Drupal's dependencies. I don't know. How do I avoid that?
There is a Drupal Composer project uses something they call Drupal core package.
Okay, yeah, right. Drupal core. Yeah.
So you, come on. I want to show you the. But basically, you run a update, composer update, and you fix the. And you have to, fix conflicts. You change your like HTTP access file, or if you change some of those files that are pre-packaged on Drupal, if you make changes on those, then you will need to fix. Any conflicts between those. But yeah, it's like you run Drupal, composer update, and you update the package, and it gets updated
So
for
you
you.
do Drupal/core.
Yeah, and there's something called Drupal scaffold. So basically, that project takes care of like getting all of the Drupal files, the Drupal files for the site, not for the core. So that's why we have this Drupal Composer project has this Drupal core. So basically, they separate core files and the web files, and the Drupal scaffold project takes care of getting Drupal and override those files for you on the web directory.
Yeah. And in case anybody finds this handy, so I've been working trying to do this too. There's a Pantheon site. You can do Drupal scaffold to get Pantheon's scaffolding files from their Drops 8 project because they have some specific like a settings.pantheon.php. So there's a way you can get scaffolding files that'll, and other projects might have that too.
Yeah, and probably the downside here is Composer is considerable more and slower than just getting the tar file from using like site new command from Drupal console. But there is a project called Prestissimo, which allows you to do while running Composer to execute like parallel like downloads from packages. So you can probably use that one. And there's a great blog post from the guy who maintains Drupal VM.
Yes.
Jeff Gerling, and I highly recommend you to read that. And there's an explanation how to speed up the composer. Downloading packages. And he kind of runs several like within that Drupal VM, run it with several things like with Prestissimo and other like he kind of optimize and give you a recipe for what will be the best approach to running this. And again, with Drupal console, we have this -- composer option that you can use. So then that will let know to Drupal console to instead of going to Drupal.org and get the project, use Composer and also update the Composer file. So basically, what it's doing in the background is redirecting all of the execution to Composer, and we haven't really promote that because we're still, arguing about all this, trying to define if we are going to keep those commands or not. For us, it seems like it will be probably easier for people to use those commands or start like using Composer or getting to the Composer flow. It's kind of a shortcut to do that, but at the same time, could be confusing because you're like using in all the Drupal download command and it's using like Composer in the background. So we're still like trying to define and decide what we'll do. Either keep or not the download commands for modules and things. And if we keep it, we have to decide if we are going to keep that option for passing this -- composer, and we'll use Composer for you. But so far now you've used it, you will see a huge warning like the current command has been executed. It tells you it's executing something like Drupal create project if you are running the site new, or sorry about that, Composer create project if you are running site new, or Composer require if you are doing the download. And I think that's all I have. Any more questions?
So, it's still not clear to me what problem this is solving. That if you just followed the installation guide on Drupal.org right now and sort of did things the old way, how is this composer-based workflow? I mean, what problem is it solving?
Well, it's kind of helping you to manage a little dependencies, so you can kind of build like profiles and replace trash make as well. Because when you're using Drupal, I mean, you are not only using Drupal, right? So basically, you have like a recipe for your project. So I mean, you have a niche, you have a business, and you might have like something like enterprise or like medical or something. And sometimes you have like your own recipe to getting all those modules and all those dependencies. So you can use this the same as you used to use TrashMake to get all those packages for you. But it's
Still use TrashMake.
yeah, you still use TrashMake, but you can replace that. The use of TrashMake, and actually, will be the way to go.
No, so I was just curious. So why would you replace TrashMake with this workflow?
With this workflow,
Yeah.
So one thing is that a lot of modules in Drupal 8 might have independent PHP libraries that are also on Packagist. And so by doing this composer require and building your core and your contrib stuff with that, then it will take care of figuring out the differences between dependencies of all the things and finding and creating the autoload file that includes not only course things, but the autoloader for all of the dependencies required by your contrib modules or your custom modules. There's been the Composer Manager project in the past, and that's been deprecated to do this instead.
yeah.
So that
It also takes care of,
Yeah.
let's say, you have a module, and your module, basically what you do is something like, should be a wrapper for an external library. So you should try to extract all of your logic that is like generic enough into a library, and then your module is only a wrapper for external library. So Composer takes care of getting your module and the dependencies of your module. And maybe your library has some other dependencies, so it takes care of getting all those dependencies, build this like huge package of dependencies, resolve their issues, and just merge them together. So, and also, the advantage of not having the libraries in the vendor directory, where we were discussing, I think, yesterday, about the licensing. She might be using, right, remember that?
Right, so part of the, like, this has to do with like distributions and things that have historically been hosted on Drupal.org, but a number of PHP projects, there's a lot of projects out there that you can take advantage of, PHP libraries that you can take advantage of. Ideally, those are using GPL v2+, or something that's compatible with it, like MIT. But there are projects that are using like Apache 2, which is an open source license, but isn't compatible with GPL v2+. And so if you just have that specified in composer.json file for your project, then you're pulling that in. You can mix those two together for your own project, but you can't necessarily mix those together on a distribution that's hosted on Drupal.org because if something's not compatible with GPL v2, it can't be packaged.
It cannot be packaged within inside the deal.
I haven't run into it, but I would expect Composer to complain if I had two different modules that had dependencies that conflicted with each other. Like, let's say module A depends on jQuery version, whatever. Module 2 depends on a different version of jQuery.
Yeah, he's doing his best in trying to solve all those dependencies.
Yeah.
And you should not use Composer to get like JavaScript libraries. Use something that is built for like NPM.
Bower.
Yeah. You can do that with Composer, but don't do that.
Use NPM. Use NPM to install Bower. And then
Only if you have to do
some JavaScript libraries.
Yeah.
Well, what about if you take this question and you say instead of a JavaScript library, it was a modules dependent on a PHP something version, and then something else depends on that same thing but a different version? How would that apply the same?
It will take care. It will try to fix, because when you define a dependency, you say something like greater or than this one, or less than this one, or between this and this other one. So it'll try to merge between those conflicting libraries. Once they merge, once they merge, do his best.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, then you kind of have to look.
I'll give you.
at
Yeah, you have to solve it yourself.
what you can do.
What you can do is kind of forward that.
Your code to work with both.
I think it'll stop your warning.
Yeah, I'll give you an error message. And how can you fix that? Well, you can update the project that is like the offending project, maybe in the meantime you solve that, you can fork that project. I mean, please never register on packages a fork repo. Just use the option that I show you about registering that repo within your composer file and point to your project in GitHub or Git, or whatever you have it, like Bitbucket, instead of the original project. Once they fix it, then you just point back to that.
Can you set overrides like you can with NPM? Say, we have these two versions, they conflict, use this one, no matter what.
Yeah, there's a way to override those. I think it's called, I don't remember the name, but there's a key for overriding those.
Yeah.
And you can always create like an alias for a project, alias anything to the like dev, and then you can fix that. And then you create within the same composer.json file.
I think I saw that on Pantheon. I saw it right up recently.
Yeah, I'm working on Pantheon's composer documentation right now. So Pantheon's documentation site is an open GitHub repository, so I have a pull request open right now for documentation on how you can use Drupal 8 and Composer on Pantheon right now. We do see this Drupal Composer Drupal project as the probable long-term solution. One of the ways I've been explaining it internally, Matthew, to answer your question of what problem is this solving, I see Composer as solving the problem of there are too many ways that I as a developer have to keep track of for how is this code updated. If you look at a site, you can look at any file or any directory and ask yourself, how is this code updated? And traditionally, Drupal developers have to keep track of, well, core is updated in this really specific way. And Drupal.org has literally a 12-step process for how you're supposed to update Drupal 6 or Drupal 7 core. So that's one really complex way you update core. There's a different process for updating contrib modules in Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. There's a different process for updating like the libraries directory, the external dependencies that Drupal 6 or Drupal 7 modules depend on. And then there's your own process for updating the custom code that you write. So that's just a lot of different things to keep track of, a lot of different processes to keep track of for how do I update this thing. And with Composer, I see the ability to boil it down to two ways. You have the code that you wrote for your project, and everything else is simply external. So I see that as a simpler solution for developers to keep track of. I'm either writing code, or I'm depending on something external, and if it's external, then I run Composer install name of project or Composer update name of project, and that's how I get and update external stuff.
And basically, if you are consuming something, then you are using Composer install. You're producing something, you are Composer update to get the dependencies of your project.
So it's the outlook on doing Drupal console working on the ING loader.
I think the big problem there is what's the name?
INQ.
That thing.
INQ loader.
Yeah, that thing have issues with file files. In Composer and Drupal project, Drupal console is distributed as a FAR. Well, we are changing the way we are distributing Drupal console. As you saw in the example, I require Drupal console on the site. So all of the Drupal console will be installed in your site, not globally on the system. We are working on having still a global executable, which is basically a way to launch Drupal console based on the site you are at or reading your aliases definition, and then it's still as a FAR. So the problem is still there. The problem is with that project is conflicting with executing FARs in your system. It's something like it's like marked insecure. So we can probably contact the project owners, but Composer has the same issue, the exact same issue with the project itself. So we can probably find out one project that already solved that and probably take them. Because I remember having that problem a long time ago, and I've seen the issue like several times on the.
It's just that issue working on that type of project that requires that you have to roll that out.
Yeah. There's a way to run PHP in passing as an argument a INI file you want to run for that execution. You can probably have a copy of your PHP INI definition, disable that library in that specific file, create an alias for your PHP, and run it like that.
Right.
PHP sometimes.
And someone should write that on the Drupal console and the documentation. More questions?
Can you explain a little bit more detail about what the benefit of the optimized autoloader thing is for? Because I've been writing a project very similar to this.
So it's basically creates this map of all of the class map of all of the libraries. You know, you have libraries, and you have a library or a module. This contains several, namespaces, right? You have namespace for each class. So basically, creates like a catch map for you of this, all the different namespaces, what the namespace and what's the class pointing to, so you can like easily like when you require classes, like be easy to find that in your system. But it creates this kind of array of things, of your libraries and your modules and the dependencies of your dependencies and all that. It's a huge map.
I see. It's so good to your IDE pick up on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like indexing all of your like namespaces of the classes you have in your project.
What uses the index then?
Yeah, where is it stored?
What's using it?
I think it's a PHP. It's a PHP file.
PHP uses it like at the runtime so that when you go and view a page and it executes the source, it loads the autoloader, which has a map of all the classes, and then if you call a class name at any other point, it knows where to get the file.
Yeah, pretty much pre-compiles. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
it just makes it possible for autoloading to work. Like autoloading won't work if PHP can't find the thing to load. So you have to create a big map of all the things that could get loaded, so that when somebody calls it, PHP can go, oh, okay, that's located over here. I'll go ahead and grab that file. Instead of the Drupal 7 method of like, I'm going to include every single file, whether or not it's used or not. In like Drupal 8, the class loader will basically say, here's all the files. I won't load this file until someone uses the class.
But the definition is preset, so it's easy to find.
Well, I think the alternative to having that cache map is to do a disk lookup every time.
Is what?
To look for it on the disk every time. So optimizing it removes the reading of the disk.
It's like the services, the service container in Drupal 8.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a huge, like PHP file with all the mapping to what's the ID and how to get any instance of the service.
Right, like ultimately that's what this gets back to is your Drupal installation has to have an autoload file that says here's all the packages that I'm using, so that when you try to use them, when any module tries to use them, there's one list. So that having the one composer.json that loads both core and your contrib stuff is what merges that all together, so that you get one autoload file that has all that information.
Actually, there's this autoload file called this real autoloader file.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think.
I'm papering over the details there.
Yeah, and you know the composer manager, never use that. It's
right.
The last version was already like a month ago, and the maintainer said something like this is the latest version and should not.
Drupal
use.
7 is something you still need to use.
Well, yeah,
but Drupal 8.
In Drupal 8 you should not use composer manager anymore. But basically, composer managers, it can kind of scan every module, get the composer JSON file, kind of merge all together, get a huge composer, get all those dependencies. It's kind of, let's use composer straight away. I mean, how should we be using it? For the same reason, we are still like unsure about leaving or removing those commands within Drupal console. We are like, we should just get rid of those commands and let people. You should use composer, require, update, or create projects, and that's the way to go.
I say remove them.
Huh?
I say remove them.
Remove? Raise your hand if you want to remove those.
It's just going to cause problems for people.
It is.
Tell them to like leave the command for a while and just have a message and say use composer.
But it's like, it's pretty much like execute. Yeah. Let's vote with something. Let's vote with some beers.
I would like to see some more examples of your post-install.yml usage examples where you're using those configurations.
Yeah. What I can do is it's share the slides and share the repo that I work with, so you can use them. But you won't be able to run the exec command because it's still on development. Well, you can do that if you instead of downloading or requiring Drupal console 1.0, you go for dev master.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.